In 2016, I attended AWS reInvent for the very first time, and it was a career-changing event for me. But maybe more on that later. One of the talks was given by James Hamilton, who's a VP and distinguished engineer at AWS, and his talk was on the inner workings of the Amazon network. It was amazing. If you have 30 minutes, I promise you'll be amazed as well at the level of engineering, technology, and the effort AWS has and continues to invest in the platform. In this module, we're going to talk about how to connect your on-premise network to your VPC. We're going to talk about a managed VPN option, Direct Connect, and a Direct Connect variant known as Direct Connect plus VPN. Going to talk about Cloud Hub, a software VPN option, and also what a transit VPC is. Now, a managed VPN is just about the simplest way that you can securely connect your on-premise network to AWS. It's an AWS managed IPsec VP connection that you just use over your current existing internet connection. And when you would use this, generally you want a quick and usually pretty simple way to establish a secured tunnel connection. And some people use it as a redundant link for their Direct Connect connection. Now on the plus side, it supports static routes or BGP peering and routing. But the downside is it's dependent on your internet connection. So if you have a unreliable internet connection, then your connection to AWS is going to be the same. Now let's see how we set one up. First of all, we got to figure out what we're going to use on the customer side to be the endpoint for the VPC connection. Usually this is a gateway or a router. Then on the AWS side, we create a virtual private gateway and a VPN connection so that we can have something to connect to our on-prem gateway. And a nifty feature of AWS is it can auto-generate config files for popular routers like Cisco, Juniper, and Palo Alto. Then we can take that information or that config file and configure the gateway on our on-prem router such that it can connect to the VPN connection on AWS. And generally, we're using IPsec as the encryption protocol. And then finally, if it's an on-demand connection, we have to generate some traffic to force that connection to get established, and then we can go ahead and use it. Then optionally, we can configure BGP routing if we need it. Here's another look where we set up dual connections. And this is useful if you wanted to have a redundant connection into AWS, but you're going to have to take care of the failover on your side of the network. Let's take a look at Direct Connect. Now, Direct Connect is just a dedicated network over private data lines that's straight into AWS's backbone network. And companies use this when they need a really big pipe into AWS, or they want to be sure that they have a consistent experience as far as bandwidth. Now, on the plus side, it's more predictable than just using an internet connection, and you can get speeds up to 10 gigabits. Now, on the downside, it may require additional telecom and hosting provider relationships, and if you don't have a network circuit, then you're going to have to install one. Setting up Direct Connect is not something you do overnight. It usually takes some time. You're usually working with your data networking provider. Then once you have your network physically connected, you can create virtual interfaces and connect those to your VPCs, as in a private VIF, or you can connect it to other AWS public services. That's known as a public VIF. Here's what that architecture would look like. Now, granted, this is greatly simplified. Generally speaking, companies have way more complex wide area networks than this one. Now note that Direct Connect consists of a single connection between a customer's router and the AWS router, and it's not redundant. So AWS recommends that you're going to set up some sort of second connection. It can be a VPN connection or a second Direct Connect connection. Now, if you do have multiple ports of the same Direct Connection location, they will be provisioned on different routers. But that still gives you a single point of failure, so you should cover your bases and have a secondary connection, ideally through a secondary datacom provider. Now there's a variation of Direct Connect that just employs a VPN connection, and this is just simply IPsec VPN over private lines. And the use case here is if you just want an additional layer of encrypted security over your Direct Connect lines. Now, when would I want to use this? Well, let's say that I'm part of a large conglomeration of companies. And while we're all owned by the same umbrella company, maybe we need to keep segregation between those companies and keep the data secret. So the umbrella company can arrange for a connection into AWS, and then all the subsidiary companies can use that same connection, only they're using IPsec to secure their individual part of that connection. Now, on the plus side, it's more secure than just plain old Direct Connect alone, but it also adds an additional layer of complexity with the VPN component in there. And again, you would probably work with your existing data networking partner to set up a Direct Connect, and then you would go through the same process as if you're setting up just a VPN, but only you're using your private network. And here's how that looks. Basically the same picture, but we're just securing the traffic between the on-premise systems and the AWS Direct Connect location. Now we also have a VPN Cloud Hub. Now this is kind of like a do-it-yourself MPLS network using public internet and IPsec VPN. And the concept is you're connecting locations in a sort of hub and spoke manner using AWS's virtual private gateway as the hub. This is good if you wanted to network a collection of remote offices. Now on the upside, it reuses the existing internet connection, so it's fairly simple to set up. And it also supports BGP routes. That's useful if you have, for example, an existing MPLS network and then using CloudHub VPN as a backup. Now, of course, it's dependent on your existing internet connection, and there's no real inherent redundancy in this connection type. You can set it up by assigning multiple customer gateways to a virtual private gateway and give each their own BGP ASN and unique IP range. And here's how this would look. Now, the communication from customer network to customer network really doesn't go directly. It routes to the virtual private gateway, then goes back down the VPN connection to that other customer network. Now, software VPN is kind of the ultimate do-it-yourself option for VPN. You provide your own VPN endpoint and your own software. An example of this might be if you want to use OpenVPN. It's not supported by the AWS VPN gateway, so you'd need to install the server portion on an EC2 instance within your VPC and configure clients to connect it. Using this option, you get ultimate flexibility and manageability, but you really have to design for any sort of needed redundancy, and you're on your own as far as support. Now, there are VPN software options in the marketplace as an appliance, or you can just spin up an EC2 instance and install your own. And here's how a network would look if it's using OpenVPN, for example. So we have the customer network, and we maybe have some mobile OpenVPN clients. They're attaching through a public internet gateway to our OpenVPN server, and then that allows them to connect to our private subnet and the respective EC2 instances there. Now we also have a transit VPC, and this is a common strategy if you have geographically dispersed VPCs and locations all over the world, and you want to create kind of a common transit center, a common meeting place where all paths cross. Now the heart of this option is that you have one VPC that's really just a pass-through, and it's a good way to support a hybrid deployment across several different cloud providers. You get a lot of flexibility with this setup, but you also have a portion that's AWS managed, so you don't have to worry about it. But you do have to design for additional redundancy across the whole chain. Now, providers like Cisco, Juniper Networks, Riverbed, they have offerings that work specifically with their equipment and this concept of a transit VPC on AWS. And here's what a transit VPC might look like. You can see it's just a hub. It's very similar to maybe a public transportation transit center where all the buses or trains come to one point, and that's when travelers can get off one bus, get on another train, and so forth. And you can see we've also included here other cloud providers. So if your company is connected with AWS, but is also a Microsoft Azure customer, for example, this is a way where you can connect those two resources and have secure access.